Of a Marco Rubio and a Jim DeMint to join them in the U.S. Senate, because then we'll have 60 Republican senators. And that with that number, we will repeal Obamacare and get back good health care in the United States and deal with the real problem, which is the cost. That's the problem with health care. Not that we didn't have enough government. President Obama thought the problem in health care is we don't have enough government bureaucrats. Yeah. So that's all Obamacare is. It's not more doctors. It's not more nurses. It's more government. And then I'm also going to repeal, with the help of your congressman and Senator Rubio and the rest of the senators, we're going to repeal Dodd-Frank, which is choking the credit for small businesses. That's another reason we're not creating jobs. You see, it's not that tough to turn the economy around. When you understand the problem, you get the solution, and you have the political will and courage and titanium spine to make it happen, you will make it happen. And so after Election Day, I don't plan to go on vacation to Martha's Vineyard or anywhere else. I plan, with all due respect, to make a call to one of my favorite congressmen and all the senators and say, we're going to put our plan together right now. Because the day that we raise our hand and take the oath of office, we're getting to work that day. I want one of the first pieces of legislation on my desk, the repeal of Obamacare, the repeal of Dodd-Frank. Then we're going to go through the budget line by line. We're going to dramatically cut back all these failed government programs that aren't helping anyone. That's going on in a lot of these programs down here, Medicaid and Medicare, $98 billion a year in fraud. Well, when there are real people who are suffering, real people who need a hip replacement, no one begrudges them that hip replacement. But we do begrudge people who are defrauding the taxpayers of the United States. That's going to end. We can't afford that. So we're going to cut back on the spending. We're going to lower the tax rates dramatically on the productivity so we can create jobs. And then, just like President Obama came in, and he passed the mother of all spending packages, $1 trillion failed stimulus package, which didn't help unemployment, I want to pass a mother of all repeal bills to repeal the $1 trillion in regulatory burden that job creators have to pay every year. Why? Because I want millions of high-paying jobs for people right here in South Florida. Everybody deserves a job. Everybody deserves a good-paying job. But you know what? President Obama has failed Hispanic youth. Do you know what the unemployment rate was this summer for Hispanic youth? Over 32%. Good kids, solid kids who wanted to work, who needed their first job. They couldn't get it. Over 32% rate unemployment for Hispanic youth. For African American, it was worse. Almost 40% of African American kids, good kids, who wanted to work, couldn't get a job. How do you move up? How do you get your next job if you can't earn those first skills and learn those first skills in that first job? You see, I believe in the country. I came from a family where we were kind of lower middle class, and my parents got divorced, and overnight we went to below poverty. My mother did the best she could, but she got a job making $4,800 a year. That's what we lived on. I had 3 brothers and no sisters, and that's the best preparation for politics any girl can have. Don't think otherwise. But what we did is my mother said to us, hold on, it's not always going to be this way. It's going to get better. We're going to work. And so I got a job babysitting. I made 50 cents an hour. That was big money back then. My brothers delivered papers. We all pitched in. We all helped out our mother. We all helped the family. And sure enough, things got better. And we worked our way through college, and then my husband and I met, and we had nothing, but we got a little money together. We started our successful business. We're not a big deal, but we employ almost 50 people. We're proud of the fact that we've got a business and that we provide work for people, and we do a very good service at what we do. You see, that's America. That's what we do in this country. We meet people's needs, and that's how we benefit the rest of the world. When Haiti had the earthquake, who was there? We you saw the terrible nuclear meltdown disaster in Japan. Who was there? We were there. You see, we can do that because with jobs that create, with small businesses that create jobs and create wealth, we have enough money to help people. It's because we love people. Americans are the most loving, generous people in the world. No one has more compassion. No one we can do all of that and more, and I can't wait to see us do it. And with your help, I'm asking you to help me so that together we can take this voice into the White House in 2012. So I'm inviting you to come to MichelleBachmann.com, that's our website. Join our team. We are all over Florida. We were in Jacksonville and Orlando and Tampa and Sarasota, this morning in Naples, now in Miami. We're going to be all over Florida because Florida chooses presidents. You choose presidents. And I want to win Florida twice with your help. Once in the primary and then in the general. And that's how we will make Barack Obama a one-term president. Let me call on a few reporters that have been so patient to wait as I was speaking, because we were having this conversation. Blake Berman. Blake.
Right here.
Blake. Hi, Blake.
Hi. Just a couple of things that you had said in the past couple of days. One, to which you just talked about Marco Rubio. Have you personally spoken to him about potentially being your VP nominee? And two, something you said yesterday about Hurricane Irene, that it was a political message from God to Washington, D.C. Do you truly believe that? And if so, how can you be trusted to oversee an event like this in the future?
Well, I've spoken with Marco Rubio. He is a wonderful man, and he has a wonderful reputation in Washington, D.C. And I don't disclose the private contents of the conversation, but we've had wonderful conversations together before, and I look forward to more with him. And, of course, it would be absurd and ridiculous to think that that was the intention of my comment. If you know me, you know that I am a person who loves humor. I have a great sense of humor, and I think it's important to exhibit that humor sometimes when you're talking to people as well. And if you take everything that a person says and so of course I was being humorous when I said that, because the American people have tried very hard to get the president's attention. He is not listening, and that was really the message that I was trying to give in those comments. So it was a great deal of humor. It would be absurd to think that it was anything other. Thank you for asking. Gary Nelson here.
Madam Congresswoman,
Hi,
yes.
Gary.
You have talked about drilling for oil and gas in the Florida Everglades, and even folks on the conservative side of the spectrum in Florida are aghast at the notion of that. Why would you invade that natural resource, gas and oil?
No, we're not. Energy. That's right.
Actually, what I've spoken about is the fact that God has so blessed the United States with natural energy resources. I haven't said specifically that we should be accessing energy there. What I have said is that according to the Congressional Research Service, in a report that came out this year, the United States is the #1 energy resource-rich nation in the world. We have a tremendous prize in the United States. It makes absolutely no sense to follow the policy of President Obama. He has locked up this wealth of resources, driving prices through the roof for individual Americans, but for businesses and job creators as well. You see, this is really where we should start with job creation in the United States, is the beautiful story that we have to tell on energy. We have more energy in 3 western states in shale oil than all the oil in Saudi Arabia. But that isn't the extent of our oil. We have billions of barrels in North Dakota, the Bachmann oil field. We have the eastern Gulf region. We have Gulf oil up in the Atlantic and the Pacific, over in Anwar. I've been up to that area. We have so much available to us. But even more important, we're the Saudi Arabia of coal. 25% of all the coal in the world is in the United States. That's the #1 fuel that supplies electricity in the United States. We also had one of the largest finds in the history of the world in natural gas in Pennsylvania recently. Trillions of cubic feet of natural gas. Natural cars and buses can be converted to use natural gas. We can run fuel that way with them. We are so blessed. We have wind, we have solar, we have hydro, we have all of it. But recently, one of President Obama's assistant deputy secretaries of the Interior said, we will never again build another federal dam for hydropower. Well, why in the world wouldn't you? The Chinese built recently the Three Gorges Dam. Why wouldn't we build a hydro? Well, because they said that the water in the reservoir causes carbon emissions. Now, I think it's important to take a look at what the American people want. The Declaration of Independence said that we rule by the consent of the governed. The American people are saying, let's access this wonderful treasure trove of energy that God has given to us in this country. Let's access it responsibly. That's the answer. If we can access energy responsibly, we do it. If we can't, we don't. It's that simple. So I say let's create millions of high-paying jobs, bring down the price of energy, make energy one of the most efficient, affordable sources to keep businesses running, and that will also attract literally millions of jobs back into this country.
Drill, baby.
Javier?
Drill, baby. Drill, baby.
Obviously, this Hispanic vote is very important to you. That's why you're in Miami.
It is.
But can you tell us exactly how important is the Cuban American vote, let alone the whole Hispanic vote?
Well,
What do you
thing.
plan on doing moving forward for your campaign?
One thing, well, I made my first visit here, as I said, to Miami, to the Bay of Pigs Museum, because the Cuban American vote is extremely important in this election. Cuban Americans, as a group of people, get liberty. They get freedom. Why? They know people who were killed by Castro.
Yes.
They have family. They have family and friends that remain yet in a land of tyranny. There are only 4 nations in the world, only 4, that are called state sponsors of terror on the Secretary of State's website with the federal government. One of those countries is Cuba. It was wrong for President Obama to weaken the sanctions against Cuba.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
wrong. I would not do that as President of the United States. And we saw recently how tragic it was that a physician was held behind bars, and he was let out recently in March because he spoke out against Castro on the forced late-term abortions. Dr. Bissett. This was a terrible tragedy, and he's been behind bars for years. We're grateful that he is released, but his story is true. And his story is one that the world should know about. This is what happens when you have not only a repressive regime, but a tyrannical regime. And that's why we will not forget the oppression that continues in Cuba. And the Cuban Americans have been faithfully and consistently telling that story. And we need to also give voice to that story here in the United States. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to be able to answer more questions, but they're telling me that we've got to stay on schedule. I love you all. I thank you for coming out. This is a tremendous sacrifice that you came today. We're going to go and eat our lunch on the bus now. So thank you, everyone.